Today we're in Columbus, Georgia, and I'm with my great-grandmother, who I call Nana. Thank you for sitting me down with me today so I can ask you these questions. Just 6 years after his death, John Paul II was beatified early this morning, May 1st, 2011. Beatified means declared blessed. It will be the fastest on record, bring him one step closer to sainthood. In the Catholic Church, a person who is declared a saint is said to be canonized, officially recognized by the Church. There are many saints I think are wonderful. St. Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of animals. St. Anthony of Padua is the patron saint of lost objects. St. Thomas Aquinas, the patron saint of education. St. Joseph is the husband of the Virgin Mary and Jesus, and the father of Jesus. And St. Nicholas is the patron saint of children. But there is one person I think outshines them all. She is a living saint. Her name is Margaret Bickerstaff, and she is my great-grandmother. Could you please tell me a little about yourself?
I am Margaret Spence Yarborough Bickerstaff. I was born in Columbus, Georgia, and I have lived in Columbus all of my life. I haven't lived any other place. I grew up in a loving home. I think I had the best mother and father that a girl could have. There were 3 girls, and I was the middle girl. And a lot of times people say that middle children are overlooked. I can't say that. Mom and Daddy didn't show any partiality. I was treated like the oldest daughter as well as the youngest daughter. We had a fantastic life. It could not have been any better. And if I could have chosen my mother and my daddy, I would have chosen the 2 that God blessed me with.
Nana, I understand when you were young, you married a professional boxer who was also a firefighter. He died at a very young age, leaving you 4 children. How did you deal with him?
Well, for years I had never worked because I had 4 children. But somehow, some way, God knew what my future was going to hold. And it was put on my heart and my mind to go to work. And I talked with my husband and my mother, and they didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. So I was called by the superintendent of a school to come and address some Christmas cards for the owner of Kaiser Lilienthal, a very outstanding ladies' shop in those days. I addressed Christmas cards for a week, and when the job was completed, my supervisor asked me if I would be willing to go to Kaiser Lilienthal and talk with someone about permanent employment. I did. I talked with Mr. Lilienthal, who was the owner of the shop. I went home and talked with Mama and with my husband, and Mama said, yes, I will keep the children while you work. Now, my husband was a fireman, and he was on duty 24 hours and off duty 24 hours. So it was really easy for him to keep the children on his off days. So Mama was not confined the whole 5 days to take care of 4 children. Well, after my daughter was in an automobile accident, I knew I could not work on Friday night and on Saturdays. I needed to be home with my children. So I sought employment elsewhere at Martin Theaters as secretary to the owner, E.D. Martin. And I worked there for about 10 years, and then I went to Royal Crown Cola Company and worked about 10 years, and then I retired.
What was your first husband's name?
Robert Terrell Yarborough, and he was called for short RT.
And can you tell me about more about your my aunt's car wreck and how you dealt with it?
All right. I think it was the latter part of 1959. Judy was in a very serious automobile accident and was in the hospital over a month. It was a horrible experience, being told that my daughter would not live by 2 or 3 doctors.
I also understand you are something called an Eastern Star. What is that?
That is a Christian organization, and it's for women and men. And I went to the Eastern Star meetings for a number of years on a regular basis. I was elected a Star Point, Easter, and I represented Easter, who is in the Bible.
I know you got remarried to Frank Bickerstaff, and many years later he passed away. You must have felt tested by God. How did he do it?
Well, I really didn't feel tested by God. God has a plan, and he carries his plans through. I knew that he would be with me, that he would not leave me, he would not forsake me. So I had God to lean on during those years.
I remember Mama Spence, your mother. She was really sick and you took care of her. You put your whole life on hold. How did you do it?
Mama was a wonderful person. She was a strong, healthy person until her late 90s. And she fell and broke her hip. And she was trying to recover from that injury. And she got sick and we had to take her to the hospital. And when she was dismissed, we brought her to my home. And between my sister and me, we took care of Mama. My sister moved in with us. She was very faithful. And we had Mama to ourselves, which we loved. Mama was very alert. She was a lot of fun to be with. And although she was bedridden for those 2 years, she was a pleasure to be with. It was my responsibility to take care of her because she took care of me as I was growing up. And even after I married, she still took care of me. She was such a tremendous help to me with my children.
Prayer is very important. How was it important to you?
Prayer is very important. I was brought up as a Baptist, and I was a member of Rose Hill Baptist Church. I joined the church when I was 13 years old, and Mama and Daddy took us to church. We were regular church attenders. I remained at Rose Hill Church until I was about 45 years old. And after Judy's experience with that automobile accident, and another experience which I'm going to tell you about, I was invited to go to Evangel Temple by a friend, and I went and I liked it. I want to back up for just a minute, but I can't remember the exact year, but my ex-daughter-in-law, Diane, had cancer. She had a melanoma mole on her leg. And they lived in Colorado Springs. And Diane and her husband had 3 children. One, a 17-year-old daughter in high school. Another little boy about about 6 years old. And then the middle child, I skipped her, but she was about 10 years old. Well, I was told that Diane was not going to get well, that cancer had spread all over her body, and I knew prayer had healed Judy, so I desperately prayed for Diane. So many times I was on my knees praying for her. She needed to live for her 17-year-old daughter. She needed to live for Lydia, the middle child who was blind, and she needed to live for her young son. But somehow, some way, it was not God's plan for Diane to get well. But during that time, it turned me around. Before, I had been going to church because it was a habit. But after Judy's experience and Diane's experience, Diane's death, I developed a strong relationship with God. I was taught to talk to Him every day throughout the day, and to read my Bible, which I had not been reading very often up until that time. And I suppose, right offhand, I really can't remember when Diane was sick and died, but today it must have been about 25 years ago.
You are my idea of a living saint. Who is yours?
Well, I am so honored, Wyatt, that you think so highly of me, and I don't know if I deserve that recognition, but I accept it because I love you. What was the end of that question?
Who is your living saint?
Who is my saint? Well, I'll have to tell you, it's my mother. Mama passed away 4 years ago, but Mama was a saintly woman. And as I said, if I could have looked the world over and chose the mother, I would still have chosen her. Mama was a very strong woman. She was a strict disciplinarian. She believed in the switch. But after she used the switch, she sat you down and she talked to you and she told you how much she loved you, and she was correcting you because she wanted you to grow up and be a fine citizen. Mama was very compassionate. She loved people. She loved to talk. She never met a stranger. Mama was a very generous person. She gave to anyone who was in need. She never refused anyone. I can remember during World War II when people would come to the door and ask for food. She never let them in her house, but she always made a plate full of home-cooked food, and she told them that they could sit on her porch and eat. She loved people, and she wanted to do for people, and she did up until the day that she died.
Thank you, Nana.
Well, darling, I thank you, and I love you.